start having at least one deal in every phase of the process, because this will help you keep a reliable stream of income. That's the biggest challenge that people have as they try to do this full time, guys. It's like they might sell. What if you sold all three of these houses in the month of June, and then you started the process all over and you didn't have any more houses in the mix until, November? Then you're stuck, for several months. You don't have any income coming in. Whereas if you spread things out and you have one property in each phase, then you've got a more steady stream of income, which that gives us entrepreneurs a lot more security.
Welcome to Real Estate to Freedom, the podcast that helps you create the active life you've always wanted through passive income investments. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Nate and Becky Lambert.
All right, everybody, welcome to this week's lesson. Nail it and then scale it. We're going to show you how to take your business from doing like one or two deals to turning it into something that you can quit your job and do real estate full time. That's, ultimately the goal that most of us have, to be able to have that passive income stream and be able to have enough to replace your salary, to quit your job, fire your boss, do this full time. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to start off with the story. I was doing a minimum, this was like 5-6 years ago. I was doing a minimum of about 3 flips at a time. And I thought that that's all that I could do. But then I realized I was simply being held back by some limiting beliefs. So I decided to change that belief system. And, sometimes when you put something out to the universe, great things come back. And I was able to secure about $600,000 in private money at a great interest rate. 600 grand. Had someone that was just like, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I want to invest," and that gave me enough capital to really scale up. Suddenly, I was within a few months. I was on fire. I ramped up to 14 deals at a time. And I made more in real estate than I ever had before. It was such a thrill, so invigorating. So once you nail the process, it's time to scale your business by creating the systems. It's all about going from doing the work yourself to creating systems to delegate things to your real estate team. So, and here's a couple core principles that could really guide you as you start to scale your business. I call it the snow fort principle. So this is when you manage several ongoing projects at one time. So a good snow fort requires a lot of large snowballs. And if you think about each snowball as like a real estate project, so you want to have several going at once. And what my brothers and I did, we would build these big snow forts, and we would start pushing one snowball along, start building that snowball, get it bigger and bigger, and then eventually would say, "Hey, come over here. I need your help." So we'd get 2 or 3 of us all pushing the same snowball till it got really big, till it turned into a big, massive snowball. So it required extra hands, all hands on deck kind of approach. So again, that was really great to get, because then the rest of us could take a break, and then we could go back to building, a small one again, start a new snowball that was smaller, more manageable. That gave us a little bit of variety, a little bit of rest. So in the same way, when you have a lot of projects going at once, you can get a break from one project by working on the other. And it gives you a chance to avoid the boredom that sometimes comes. And then, you can go back to the other snowball kind of refreshed and ready to go. So this is just an important principle of productivity. Just working on the same thing all the time just gets old. You got to have some variety and different projects at different stages. And, as I mentioned, we'd gather the help, and then we'd also together would stack the snowballs to make a big fort. So all together, these projects, as I mentioned, each represents a house, and all together, that's like your real estate portfolio that turns into this big, beautiful castle. Ultimately, instead of a fortress, you've got a fortune in real estate. So look at it this way. Here's another way to describe the same principle. I like to call it your manuscript progression chart. So you have different projects, different phases, and it's a great way to keep everything organized to stay on track. This is so I always say create a spreadsheet. I love myself some spreadsheets, guys. This is how I scaled into doing 14 from 3 deals, 3 flips at a time to 14. I divide them up into 3 phases: the under contract purchasing phase, fixing, and selling. So we'll talk about each of these phases. And then you're going to list the properties that you have that are at each stage, and you're going to create a goal date to get a property to the next stage. And then you'll have a column of to-dos of what you need to do to get that property to the next phase. So here's what it looks like. You have your under contract purchasing phase. So whether you're going to flip the house, rent the house, it's all the same. You got to find that deal. And a couple weeks ago, Edmund showed you guys some great software that you can use as a tool to get that property. Then you're going to be, again, each house has you're at a fixing phase, right? So you almost always need to do something to the house to add some additional value. So the fixing phase is another phase, whether you're going to rent it or you're going to flip it to sell it. Okay, so this is the progression chart that we're talking about. So these are the 3 phases that you're at, right? So we talked about the under contract, which essentially means you're looking to buy it. Maybe you're getting the money ready, you're doing your due diligence, you're doing inspections. These are all some of the key tasks for the under contract phase. And the nice thing about this is if you get too many projects in the same phase, you start getting overwhelmed and it gets a little too much. So the fixing phase, again, a huge amount of fixing if you're going to flip it because you want it to look really nice. You want it to be ready to maximize profit on it. So that fixing phase is really key. And that phase, the contractor is going to be a really important piece of the puzzle. The contractor is super important to make sure that you're getting things moving along. And I would recommend having a weekly meeting with your contractor. Every week you're going to want to be like, hey, what am I doing next? What's the next part? What's the next role? Where are you at? Where did you want to get? Where do you think is reasonable for you to get by the end of this next week? And I would say even during the fixing phase, you want to ideally even pay the contractor every week based on the progress they made that week, because if you give them too much money in advance, sometimes they get busy. They might even take on a different side project and kind of ignore your project for a while, which is not what you want because time is money, right? So you want to keep that contractor busy working on your skill. And then you've got the selling or renting phase. This is where you either hire a realtor to sell the house. If you're flipping it, you have a realtor or someone run comparables, so you know what the property could be, what projects of a similar size are selling for, and then start at a reasonable price. I'd say I usually like to start like a little bit on the higher end of what I might be able to sell for, just because I don't want to leave money on the table if you start too low and then you get an offer immediately. Sometimes that's an indicator that you could have gotten a little bit more. So I like to start a little bit higher, not too high. You want it to go quickly. You don't want to sit around and try and get a pie in the sky number that's not really that realistic. but you wanna obviously catch as much as you can. Same thing with the rental, right? You wanna hire a good property manager in this situation. It's either a realtor or a property manager, and they're gonna recommend, hey, I think you could probably get X, Y, or Z rent out of the property. So then you're gonna rent it for that amount. And so, that phase is mostly headed up by your realtor or your property manager. You're gonna have to do some things, right? Because you're gonna have to be responsive and sign documents and contracts and things like that. But for the most part, your property manager or your realtor is running the show in phase three. So you can see in this example, 123 Sunflower Drive is going to be that's at the selling renting stage. So you've pushed it through the first two phases. You're in the stage three, whereas 756 East Rolling Hills Drive, that's the one you got it under contract. You're doing your due diligence. You're working with a title company to get ready to purchase the property. You're checking to make sure that there aren't any liens on the title. Those are some of the key things in that phase. And the house on Horseshoe Bend Ave, that's the one that you got your contractor is working on getting things going. So a couple reasons for this rule of three. Here's why it's smart to do this. You want to have start having at least one deal in every phase of the process, because this will help you keep a reliable stream of income. That's the biggest challenge that people have as they try to do this full time, guys. It's like, they might sell. What if you sold all three of these houses in the month of June, and then you started the process all over and you didn't have any more houses in the mix until November? Then you're stuck, for several months. You don't have any income coming in. Whereas if you spread things out and you have one property in each phase, then you've got a more steady stream of income, which that gives us entrepreneurs a lot more security. Feeling like, okay, things are coming in, and that's a much better place to be. You got that steady stream of sales. And the other good reason to do it like this is then you have a people on your team. You give them an even workflow. So for example, your contractor if you only have one contractor team and you've got three projects they're working on, sometimes it's like, man, they get kind of like mixed up. Where do I go next? And so it's hard for them to keep track of everything, to keep everything going. So it's really nice to have just one project for that contractor. Keeps things doable for them. Now I'll show you what the next stage looks like and how to handle that. So for example, if you follow the rule of three, once you've got a project in all three phases, one project in all three phases, next your goal is to start to get two properties in each phase, and then three projects. And by staggering it this way, again, you're going to make things a lot easier on yourself, because some phases require more of your input, more of your work, and the other phases require more of your team. So it kind of gives kind of a more steady, even workflow when you've got multiple projects like this. Now, of course, you got to keep in mind that every once in a while you're going to have projects that go a little faster, a little slower than you expect. So you might have some crunch time, right? I mean, I remember when I had 14 flips going at once. At one point, I had 8 of them in the selling phase. So that got a little bit overwhelming, because I was having to work with all these staging companies, get all the furniture in. I was working with the realtors, signing all these contracts. It was just like a lot going on. So it was a little stressful. So that's, again, why it's so nice to have things at a more even feel, because you don't want to be running like a chicken with his head cut off. But it all worked out in the end with a lot of sweet payouts in the end, having that many deals and 6 sell. That That's a big month of income, a couple $100,000 coming in to the bank. I want to just emphasize here for a minute, that as you get more projects going with the contractors, for example, you want to have, you don't want to overwhelm your contractors. So maybe your contracting team can handle two projects at the same time. But you notice when you get to that stage where you've scaled up and now you have three projects going at once, you might notice your contractors start slowing down and they're not able to keep up. So you got to be ready to spend more of your time hiring. And you always want to be looking for, that other contracting team. You want to look for, realtors, it's not as hard to handle multiple projects, but look for even multiple contractors, multiple realtors. You just want to have that steady flow. So always be kind of keeping an eye out for what's the flow like on the project so that you keep things going at a good rate. So the next thing you want to focus on is delegating. Delegate things to project managers. So as you look at your project progression chart, you're going to write down all the to-dos that need to be done for each project. So all right, what needs to happen next for the Sunflower Drive house? How can we move that to the next step? Maybe you need to, drop the price, for example. Maybe you need to go make sure the lawn is mowed at the properties. I'm thinking of some of the things that I need to do with some of the houses of mine. I've got like 3 projects right now at the selling phase. So, I need to go double check that some of these things are done so the house looks nice. So keep that list, and then ideally think of how you can delegate that rather than doing the job yourself. Say, all right, who can I hire to go mow the lawn at the property so that it looks really good for sale. So then you can add another column labeled assigned to and delegate all, if not most, if not all, the tasks to the project manager or assistant. So what is it that you have got going? And the more you can delegate, you got to think of what is my highest and best purpose? What am I best at? At the beginning you're just figuring all this out, but sooner or later you're going to realize, hey, my best role is just raising capital. My best role is, just kind of assigning tasks and leading the team, right? So the more you can take stuff off your plate, so you, instead of thinking, how can I do this? You think of who can do this for me? Who can do this project? You might hire a virtual assistant. Again, you don't want to be the one dealing with all that stuff. You want to be hiring everything. And then another thing, so you have your project managers that you can delegate tasks to. Another group of people that you can delegate to is partners. What partners can you delegate things to? So I like to include partners in my real estate plan because I love to delegate tasks to partners. And truthfully, as you get bigger and better, as you get more knowledge and experience in real estate, it's really nice to be able to pass some of the tasks that need to be done to a junior partner. And they actually love the fact that they get a chance to learn and grow through the experience. So it's a win for both of you. So, for example, I have a team of 5 assistants, but they're all part time because I delegate many of my responsibilities in my real estate to my partners. In fact, my new wife, Becky, she's become one of those partners. I delegate all the mail opening. She opens all the mail because she's really good at being exact. She's good at making sure the bills are paid. She does all the financial evaluations. She was a banker, so I want to always like have, why should I spend my time trying to evaluate a property when I have someone on my team, my wife, who's got 13 years of experience as a commercial banker that can evaluate the properties for me. So I have other partners on the project that collect all, that do a lot of the accounting work. They'll get the numbers from the project, from the property manager. I get a copy of those, of the monthly report, so I can see what's going on. It's important to stay on top of what's going on so nobody, screws you over. And then, they put it all together. Look it over. They contact the property manager if things look weird. They get it fixed. And again, they get a lot of opportunity to learn from the process. And then, eventually some of these partners, once they've worked with me for a while, they've done a couple projects, now they're wanting to be the senior partner. And so they're jumping in and they're hitting the scale it stage, and they're looking for other junior partners to be on the nail it partners who they can delegate to. And again, you're empowering. Don't think about it like, oh, I'm taking advantage of a person. No, you're actually like empowering them by teaching them some of the things that you're learning, and have them do some of those tasks that you don't that aren't in your best and highest and best use to do yourself. So a couple key takeaways: to build an empire, guys, you got to expand. You got to have multiple projects going at once, and you can't do it all yourself. You got to have a team. So get organized, have a spreadsheet like I was showing with all of your properties that you're working, and have each of the 3 phases listed out. And then at first you're going to try to get a property in each of the 3 phases. As a reminder, you're going to have the finding stage where you're getting it under contract and purchasing it. Then you're going to have the fixing stage, and then you're going to have the renting / selling phase. And you're going to need to delegate to project managers and partners to handle everything that's going on, because again, it's all about building that snowball. You got to have a lot of team members all pushing the snowballs for you, building a beautiful snow castle. And that is how you nail and scale your business and create a massive empire with over 100 rental properties, if that's what you're looking for, or whatever big goal you have, that big dream in mind. That's what you get. That's how you get to that point. It doesn't always necessarily hurt to try it out on your own just to learn the steps, but here's the risk. Here's why I usually recommend just get a good property manager right from the beginning. There's a lot more that goes into it than you realize. And I tried to do it with my first rental property. I tried to find my own tenant. And, I had this guy that was a smooth talker. He talked a big game. Sounded like a good deal. I didn't really check his credit or his income. I didn't do all those steps that a property manager would do. And as it turns out, he ended up just kind of taking advantage of me. He went 3 months without paying rent. I had to evict the guy, garnish his wages. It was kind of a little bit of a mess. So I would recommend, just get on some of the Facebook groups in your area. Ask for who's a good property manager. You want to get someone good. There's definitely some really crappy property management companies out there. So you want to get someone really awesome. But the nice thing about getting someone right away is that instead of going and showing the property, you can start finding more deals to get the pipeline loaded up again, right? So you want to get those 3 properties in every phase. So I'd say just go right to finding the next one, and have your team members do what they do best. And by the way, you're the Vanessa that I've worked with like years ago, right? That you were on the team.
Yep.
That's you,
one.
right? Okay, I thought that was you. I'm like, that looks like the Vanessa from. Glad to have you back. Glad to keep working with you, Vanessa.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for listening to Real Estate to Freedom with Dr. Nate and Becky Lambert. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can download their free ebooks and workshops by visiting realestatetoFreedom.com.